I envisioned we would get the backfill for the bridge from the town hall thing, so the price would have gone down in that case. But the part of the raising the elevation was to take out part of that slope on the east side or Texas Road side of the bridge.
That's
yeah,
correct.
that rise, and it was not just for the bridge itself, but for the road itself.
If the board doesn't have any further questions or requests from me, I'll move on to my other reports. Good news about the well AO2 replacement project. I understand from Steve today that that well is now going online, so maybe he can give you a better update here in a few minutes. I do not have additional information on the Board of Elections voter address correction request, unless anybody else does. Okay. Sanitation services update. Again, we have seen a marked reduction in the traffic that is going to the site. Yeah, and it's not based on the cost. Those that want to pay are paying. What we have seen is a reduction in the number of people who are using the site for their own convenience, meaning not Montreat, from outside. Again, you know, I would just encourage people to get facts before they make blanket statements. The personnel update for town clerk, we have started to receive personnel, resumes. I believe we have 5 now, so we look forward to getting a person on board here in the next, say, 30, 60, 90 days. The compactor site attendant, as you probably realize, with the marked reduction in the traffic, we have not seen a need to go ahead and hire that position. We have been filling that position in with our own public works staff, and that seems to be working well now. Again, we're only averaging what I'd say 6, 8, 10 at the most. So, you know, to me that sort of indicates now that the site may not be needed. Town administrator, just to give you an update on myself, I'm planning to take a vacation July 20th through July 31st. This is my normal vacation, 2-week vacation period. So I will be available by email if you need to contact me, and of course staff will be here to assist. So again, available by telephone, email, but just know that I will be out of town for those 2 weeks. And I believe that concludes my reports unless y'all have any other questions.
Anything else? Okay, I need to go back because I skipped. We had some certificates of appreciation, and Martha noted that we were going to wait till next month for the Eagle Scouts, but we have a certificate of appreciation for First Presbyterian Church of Marianna, Florida, and I'll let Martha explain why we are giving thanks to them.
Thank you, Mayor. The youth from the First Presbyterian Church in Marianna, Florida offered their Wednesday afternoon of free time during the youth conference to do a service project for the town. So that gracious offer was passed along to the town, and through the town to the Land Care Committee, and I'm the vice chair of that committee. So 3 of us, O'Neill Tate and Joe Standard and I, met with this group of youth and their advisors at Welch Field, and we went on down Elizabeth's Path and divided them into groups, and they pulled invasive species from along Elizabeth's Path. I'll say that I think I had the advantage. I took the boys with me and told them I needed some really strong people to help me pull Japanese knotweed, which those of you know, it looks kind of like bamboo. The roots go for absolutely miles under and we needed to pull it up as much as possible by the roots. And so they felt really empowered to be very strong, and we pulled up a lot of Japanese knotweed. If you're walking along Elizabeth's Path, it's right where the telephone companies, near the telephone company's big equipment by the creek. There was a whole section that was very dense with the Japanese knotweed. So we got a big pile of that. They also took a little break and found a few salamanders in the creek. The young women pulled up some of the ivy, the English ivy that was along, that was actually coming near to where some new special native plants have been planted along Elizabeth's Path. So We want to show this youth group how much we appreciate their being with us. They came with gloves and closed-toed shoes and bug spray and some of the things they needed. So we encourage others. If you know of a church group coming up for the youth conference, we'll be glad to give an afternoon to work with them and help them do a project on behalf of the town. So thank you.
Thanks, Martha. Administrative reports. David, for Chief.
Good evening. For the sake of brevity, just going to hit a couple of points on here. The high water marks for June activity. For the most part, everything was pretty much run-of-the-mill. Those numbers really don't jump that much. The two interesting standout things, early in the month on the 9th, we actually were audited by the North Carolina Department of Justice, the Criminal Justice Standards and Training Division. That's sort of a revolving thing that goes around and hits all agencies throughout the state, be it Highway Patrol, Montreat Police Department, Arboretum, agencies of all sizes. To my knowledge, I don't think we went through an audit in probably about 20 years or so, give or take. Just to give you an idea of the randomness of it. Basically, that audit pertains to just looking at the agency profile, our personnel, and annual in-service training files. Any sort of certificate accreditation, anything like that that an officer receives throughout the year goes into that file. Any of the paperwork that starts literally from day one in the hiring process, background checks, medical, that sort of thing there. They're looking for all that to be in place, and that is in place from day one up until the point the officer retires and years after they're gone. I'm not really sure the retention of that, but we still have plenty of them. We came through great. There were just one or two little minor hiccups, and those were actually fixed in about 2 days' time, and we actually received a letter of thanks from the head of that department congratulating Chief Staggs on how quickly he was able to assess and fix those problems, and to thank him for his hospitality for his agent that was up here. The other point here is textbook, see something, say something, that we try to impart to everybody. On the 26th of June, our sanitation guy, Bill Kreisman, on his normal rounds, noticed a vehicle and two individuals in that vehicle that looked somewhat out of place. Dilapidated vehicle, disheveled looking individuals. Anyway, he went through, he called the officer on duty, that was Lee Blevins that particular day. Lee came up on scene, actually only found one individual initially, and it took a moment. The other one was coming back from a house. They claimed that they were soliciting tree work service. They did have ropes, chainsaws, that sort of thing in the vehicle. Perhaps they were soliciting for tree service, perhaps just a very clever ruse, not really sure. However, a quick background check actually showed that both of these individuals had warrants on them. One was actually a fugitive from Virginia, and Virginia did want him back. Both individuals were arrested. We had the one individual that was wanted by Virginia, the other one was local here in Buncombe County. Both those individuals were incarcerated. The vehicle was inventoried and towed, and is still in storage to my knowledge. Other than that, about run-of-the-mill, I don't want to spoil anything for next month's exciting episode, but if you have any sort of questions about the parade or run, I'll field those.
Anything for David?
Congratulations on the audit, we're proud of you.
Thank you. Chief Staggs put a lot of work into that.
And thank you for recognizing the Public Works employees who assisted, essentially, with the identification of individuals who might not belong here.
They consistently help us out quite a bit, from activity like this to just, hey, there's a no parking sign down here, or hey, possibly check on this and check on that. They are a very valuable source of information around the town on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks, David. And I'll just say it one more time. If you see something that looks out of place, please call our police. They're here 24/7. They don't mind being called. They don't mind making a mistake. It's a mistake that they stop somebody that's where they're supposed to be, but it's better for us to be safe than sorry. Montreat's a safe place, but people do come into Montreat that don't belong here. Public Works, Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. We collected two 30-yard open-top containers of bulk items this past week, which is about twice as much as last year. We had more people in over the 4th of July holiday because my hours of pumping for the wells went up from what averages is around 6 hours a day. They were up to about 12 for that weekend per day. And we're back down to 6 hours now on that. We also got New Hope Lane, Peace Lane, and small sections of Upper Kentucky, Appalachian, and Louisiana near Harmony paved. So those projects are now completed. And the crew's been working hard all over town mowing, and we only lack about 2 or 3 more roads of having all those mowed for the first time. We also sent out our annual water quality report, so everybody should have got that in the mail, and I'm happy to report all the tests were good over the past year. We spend over $6,000 just in testing per year to make sure that the water is safe. And finally, well, A04 up on Graybeard was struck by lightning late yesterday evening, so I'm going to have to replace that one. But we did put well A02 back online today to take care of the difference until we can get that one repaired. If you don't have any further questions, that will conclude my report.
Any questions? Thanks, Steve. Finance, Steve?
Thank you. You have your detailed reports and your summary report from May. This is almost the end of the year as far as the summary report goes. Next month I'll give you a report that still will not be final until the audit, but I do a lot of end of year reconciling and posting and entries, so things will change a little bit when you see this next one. But as of May, year to date for general fund, we had brought in $1,356,000, which is almost the same as last year. That's not counting restricted items, which change from year to year. 1.4 million overall in revenues. Expenditures, $1,347,000. That's a bit lower than last year, but of course last year we had some additional funded programs like the Assembly Drive pathway. So far through May, we're looking at a small surplus of $85,000. And in the water fund, we're looking at so far revenues of $279,000. That's slightly less than the same time last year. But of course, there's a big increase in June. Expenditures of $445,000 compared to $355,000 same time last year. So far, we're looking at a deficit of $165,000. That will probably shrink when the June revenues come in. And in cash investment, this is through June 30, so this is basically what our cash position was at the end of the fiscal year of all accounts of $1,838,000. And for all accounts for the year, we earned a little over $1,000 in interest. Do you have any questions?
Thanks, Steve. Building Inspector, Code Administrator David.
For the month of June, we had 2 zoning permit applications that came in. One was approved, the other is still pending. There were 17 building permit applications for the month. All of those were approved except one. There were 69 building inspections requested for the month and 3 re-inspections for a total of 72. That was a really busy month for inspections. That's about double what I normally do. I did have to issue 1 stop work order. There was a project that started without permits being issued, and I was aware of that, doing an unrelated inspection and saw some other work being conducted on site, so I had to put a stop to that before they were able to get the other permits in place, and that has since been resolved, so they are now in compliance with that project. Let's see, planning and zoning did not meet during the month of June, neither did the Board of Adjustment, but this month, next week, we will be having a meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to look at stream buffers as requested. So unless there are any further questions.
I have a question. I had requested an item for planning and zoning, and you may have a list of things that are to be considered by planning and zoning. I wanted to look at setbacks, front and back required setbacks, to see if our current ones are still important to consider. That was based on an application that came to the Board of Adjustment where the property was sort of level and then it just dropped way off, and the request was to pull the house closer to the road. And so I have asked if we can reconsider our setbacks. Do you know when that'll be considered?
Well, as I said, we have the agenda item coming up this month. Their next regular meeting will be in 3 months. If need be, we could, request that they go ahead and meet before then, but normally that would just be an agenda item that would roll into their next regular meeting time. This particular case you're referring to is on a steeply sloping lot. It's very close to that threshold of 40%. And there is relief in the hillside development ordinance for those steeply sloping lots to where they can be evaluated on a case-by-case basis and request a reduction in the setback. So there's already some administrative relief there, but there may be a need to look at that a little bit further. So we can certainly bring that back to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. I'd like to ask that you bring it back sooner, than not wait for another quarter for them to meet, but ask them to meet sooner.
Okay.
At one time, they were scheduled to meet every month, but it wasn't always necessary or easy to get a quorum or so forth. But I'd ask that you consider that sooner.
All right.
There may be people waiting to build who are just wondering how best to use their property.
Any further questions? That concludes my report.
Thank you, David. Now's the time for public comment for items that appear on the agenda. If you'll limit your comments to 3 minutes and give your name and address. And since I'm usually looking at the person who's speaking and not at the screen that shows you when your time is up, Ron will tell you time. And I would ask that you sit down when he tells you your time is up. Mary Jo?
I'm Mary Jo Clark, 407 West Virginia Terrace. Can y'all hear me? No. I'm Mary Jo Clark, 407 West Virginia Terrace. Tonight, Mary Standard over and over again said to be perfectly clear, and that seems to be a strong goal of hers. I would like to ask for my 3 minutes to make 3 points for clarification and to ask the council to respond in a limit of 3 minutes to the points. But first, to be perfectly clear, traditionally is not the 4th of July a time to celebrate freedom, including freedom of speech, and a great tradition of civil dissent, including the Boston Tea Party. And I thank the citizen, whoever it was, who expressed their civil disobedience that day. Secondly, to be perfectly clear, Mary, over and over again, you referred to consensus decisions, but said Jack dissented. Well, by definition, that is not a consensus decision. So you have a very small group of council members, and I urge you to understand what consensus means and to be perfectly clear about that. Third, to be perfectly clear, you chastise people for expressing their opinions about the bridge over recent months and implied that they had no right to speak up if they had not attended the charrette in 2012 and expressed their opinion at that point. I would like to know what date that was and how many people, taxpayers of Montreat, are traditionally in residence on that date. I'd like clarification on that. And the assumption is if you became a citizen or taxpayer after that, you're implying that you have no right to a voice, and that seems very un-American. So in conclusion, to be perfectly clear, I request that the elected officials of this community to follow your charge to listen to the people in this community and listen to us with respect. And if you are unable or unwilling to do so, to consider resigning. Thank you.
I would ask you all are here at our business meeting, and applause is appropriate when we have a speaker here or we're giving awards. Would you please hold your applause and not have it during public comment? Anyone else? Tom?
Tom Friss, 98 Friss Road. First of all, I love you all and respect you greatly for your service to all of us in Montreat. You're much more giving and unselfish than I am. But I also feel that you have made some very bad decisions as a town council. You have insisted on the location of a new town hall at Florida Terrace despite overwhelming citizens' disapproval. You have ignored our appeals for a Blue Ribbon Commission to study alternatives. You have ignored compromise solutions. And now you want to go ahead with this outrageously expensive bridge on Texas Road, which is an affront to the character of Montreat. In regard to the bridge, I want to read you publicly a letter sent to you today by Alice Lentz. Mayor and Commissioners, I do not know if you're aware of the May 13th death of Tom Lentz, man of honor and grace. My husband was courageous, gracious, kind, and so very smart. He spoke eloquently, and his statements were grounded in data. Tom Lentz did his research always. He was amazed at how often people who make decisions to spend other people's money in spirit do not do theirs. In all that he undertook, Tom Lentz also imbued an artistic sensibility and sense of scale that reflect the best of the human spirit. For example, Tom loved the New York City High Line in its grace and appropriate scale for and service to the 1 million people who call Manhattan home, as Tom and I did for many years that we lived and worked there. That a 42-foot wide bridge over a creek is being considered by Montreat's mayor and commissioners with the attendant cost an affront to rational and artistic sensibilities, and with the far better and simpler option of connecting Tennessee Road a few yards away, is simply astounding. I implore you, please place tonight, July the 9th, a moratorium on the Texas Ridge project in order that the community of Montreat might be heard and its views considered in the appropriate scale, sensibility, and cost. Solution to the issue or potential non-issue on the table of a bridge to carry a few vehicles across the creek. I do not speak for my husband who is elsewhere. I am unable to be present tonight for your deliberations. I do, however, communicate with vigor the view that I hold and the view that I believe my husband would communicate were he and I are present tonight. Alice Lentz. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else?
Mike Sonnenberg, 125 Virginia Road. I have a couple questions. One is, are you going to make the bridge like the Lookout Road Bridge so that when you drive up to it, you can't see south on Assembly Drive? Number two question, are you going to make a boulevard like you've made on this bridge over here? The number three question is, I don't understand why we need to have 8 feet of additional width to the bridge to support a few people that walk that don't weigh as much as vehicles. Why can't we make a walkway on the side of the bridge that would be adequate and really cut down on the cost? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else?
I'm Bill DeVos, and I live at 207 Alabama Terrace. I have a concern, and it doesn't really relate to any particular location of the Texas Road Bridge, but rather it pertains to the safety and well-being of our children. When my grandchildren were so high and attending clubs over there on Texas Road, I would pick them up at 12 o'clock, and traffic was moving in two directions. and children were having to cross traffic to get into vehicles and so forth. And my good friend Bill Grimsley was a councilman at that time. And I approached Bill and suggested that the council consider making Texas Road one-way so that the children would be safe when they were getting in and out of their vehicles or crossing the road, whatever. And, you know, well, I turned around. The council had passed that ordinance and had made it one way, and it was that way, I think, until the bridge gave way, and it couldn't be that way anymore. And my concern is that wherever the bridge is located, that consideration be given to our children and their safety and well-being in the direction of the flow of traffic on Texas Road, so that their safety is preserved when they are attending their club programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else?
Bob Cunningham, 162 Virginia Road. I was not here 6 years ago, or I was here from time to time, but certainly not following the deliberations of council. And I can hear you. Excuse me. I was not here frequently at council meetings 6 years ago. I was perplexed. I was concerned about the bridge once the information came available to us most recently. And I came tonight and I was rather surprised to see that the members of council are confused by what's going on in this whole matter. And certainly I'm confused. And I wonder whether it's appropriate to make a decision among the council when you don't even seem to understand it at all. One option would be to take time out on this, perhaps involve the community in a Blue Ribbon Committee or some other way to get outside input as well as yourselves. And then at that point, come back and revisit this issue at a more appropriate time. I know you, as was mentioned, you have a tremendously difficult job, and this has been a very stressful year for you as well as for the citizens here. And perhaps we should take a little time out on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else?
Karen Boyd, 208 Harmony Lane. My question is, I've heard a lot of people try to describe what the bridge would look like, and there does seem to be some confusion. So I'm wondering if an artist's rendering or an architectural drawing might be available to help everyone understand what this 42-foot wide bridge might look like in that place, and what the impact would be on the park, etc. Some of you probably know this very well, but I haven't seen. I know there were some drawings presented a year ago, but things have changed since then. So I would love to see some kind of a drawing so we could see what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Madam Mayor and members of the council and staff and members of the community. So one of the things that I really value in my life is my husband, whose name is Mike Caulfield, who's a bridge engineer. His latest bridge was an 8-year project connecting Mississippi.
Can we get your name and where you are?
Ann Jones, 314 Chapman Road. So his latest project was a bridge over the Mississippi River connecting Mississippi and Arkansas, an 8-year project, a cable stay bridge, really pretty, and millions of dollars in the making, lots of contact with the federal government. So he came last week and he read plans and he read minutes and he wrote a note and he went home because his mother is about to be 99. So he had to go. But I'd like to read what he wrote. I made copies, and so we have copies of this if anybody wants to see it. Regarding the proposed project, to meet mandated flood criteria and the very tight curved geometry, the proposed project will always appear to be a forced design solution rather than a natural one. The obviously forced elements include: 1, a road and bridge elevated approximately 7 feet higher than the existing road profile. 2, a very wide bridge, 42 feet, carrying a narrow roadway, 2 10-foot lanes. The wide bridge will likely be a source of conversation for generations regarding how it was ever the correct solution to carry a village road over a stream. 3, a tall concrete retaining wall must be employed to protect the ball field from the elevated roadway side slopes. This will box in the ball field. In general, this solution is one used in an urban setting only where no other solution is available. So, regarding the location that intersects Assembly Drive at Tennessee Road, this alternative is the natural solution for the project. 1, the existing elevation of this alternative is on higher ground, so the new road and bridge can be constructed without forcing in a raised roadway embankment. 2, without raising the roadway profile, a retaining wall, an ongoing maintenance issue, is not necessary. 3, this alternative will move the Texas Road and traffic away from the ball field, further enhancing the ball field's intimate family appeal and ultimate Frisbee gathering place. 4, because the resulting bridge will be straight, it can be much narrower, perhaps 24 feet or less. It will make visual sense as to why it was built for future generations. Finally, this alternative will combine Tennessee Road and Texas Road intersections with Assembly Drive into a single intersection, helping to minimize traffic confusion along Assembly Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Under old business, we have the proposed revisions to Montreal.
Thank you. My name's Don Reed. I live at 127. Can't hear you. Can you hear me now? I live at 127 Shenandoah. This sheet of paper that Ron passed out, thank you, Ron, that's something I asked for 4 weeks ago, and I'm glad to get it tonight about the cost. And it does make something perfectly clear. Number one is, we started out 7 years ago with a little repair job on a little bridge. And it has now grown, and people were aghast about a year ago when I said, this bridge will cost over $1 million. Oh no, it'll never cost $1 million. Well, it's already up to $1.23 million. That is outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. And by the way, I did talk with Ann Jones' husband. He is an expert bridge